So I ended up going back to Spirit AeroSystems after we shut down the business in Boise, Idaho, or Meridian. And I went back into the financial planning department there at Spirit AeroSystems, which I had a ton of amazing opportunities there at Spirit. The I got to see the business grow. They had just gone public, and before while I was gone in Idaho, and so we were looking at some integrations, acquisitions, lots of other things. And I did have an opportunity to look at buying some facilities in Europe from Airbus. So we went through and did some analysis on that. And then I ended up transferring and starting to work with our aftermarket business, our operations in Tulsa, Prestwick, Scotland, and Malaysia. And so we'd won work to manufacture two of Gulfstream's wings down in Tulsa, and there were a lot of issues with those programs. And so I ended up having an apartment down in Tulsa, and then I drove back and forth every week for nearly a year. That I went back and forth working on lots of different issues. They had some antiquated systems there, and so I put some automation in place to be able to help with the ordering of components for the G280 and the G650 wings. Then I actually worked on a project where we were looking at moving the wing from Tulsa to our operation in Malaysia. And so I did travel with a consultant to Southeast Asia and visited a number of different suppliers in the region, in Malaysia, Indonesia, in Thailand, and Vietnam, looking for opportunities to move the wing production to Malaysia. The problem is you can't peen form the wing, so this wing skin is this massive piece of aluminum, and it is formed with this process called peen forming. And a company called Sonica in Canada and the U.S., they peen form the wing, and so it'd be very difficult to do that in Southeast Asia since it didn't have the capability. And so we'd have to transport these massive sheets of aluminum that are formed to Southeast Asia, do the assembly there. And with the G280 wing, the problem is with it was actually, Gulfstream actually did the final assembly in Israel. And so if we did the manufacture in Malaysia, then we'd have to ship it to Israel, and there's not a trading relationship between Malaysia and Indonesia, or between Malaysia and Israel. So it was a great experience to be able to visit a lot of different companies there in the region. Spirit AeroSystems operations in Malaysia were amazing. And but it didn't work out. And then shortly thereafter, I was actually recruited to go work at Koch Industries. And so I left Spirit AeroSystems and went to Koch, Koch, so KII, so Koch Industries, at the time owned by Charles and David Koch. Charles is still alive. David's passed away since then. So I worked in a group called Operations Excellence there, where I worked on a lot of different projects in across Koch. So we were kind of like a consulting group that worked across Koch on operations best practices. I worked a lot on capital project best practices. So helping the capital project teams that were deploying billions of dollars worth of capital each year across the Koch businesses. You're talking Georgia Pacific, Flint Hills Resources, Invista. So there's several $billion a year in capital projects that they were deploying, and so we worked with those capital projects teams. One of the things that I did have specific responsibility for was doing economic forecasting for capital project related costs. So we're talking about like rotating equipment, set equipment, stainless steel, carbon steels, concrete, trade labor, technical labor. So we would look at the costs of those materials and labor globally, and then we were doing a 3-year forecast to help the project teams be able to determine whether, hey, would the project still be successful if steel was at this price? Would it be successful if it was at this price? Because a significant portion of the cost of those chemical processing facilities was steel, stainless steel, carbon steel, and then of course the equipment. A big cost of the equipment is the steel prices. We also looked at labor factors, right? So, and everything was based upon the cost of doing something in Houston, and then everything was factored off of that, right? So the labor efficiency of an engineer in Brazil was roughly half the efficiency of an engineer in Houston. A engineer in China was roughly a third, right? So it'd take 3 engineers in China to essentially produce the same output that one engineer in Houston, right? So we had these factors, efficiency factors, also the labor. The labor was less efficient or more efficient depending on where you went in the country. So you had to take that into account when you're looking at the cost of the projects. And so that was an amazing time. I loved working at Koch. Had a lot of other projects I worked on there as well. I did a thing called the Green Book, which was like the EH&S, the Environmental Health and Safety metrics that went to the Koch Board of the Directors. So I put all that information together for all the Koch businesses on a quarterly basis, so the board of directors could see how the teams were performing from a safety standpoint. So safety was really, really important at Koch Industries. If they couldn't measure profitability, they would actually use safety as a proxy for profitability, because there would tend to be a really tight correlation. If a business leader was paying attention to safety, they were also paying attention to their financials. And so if you couldn't really view and quantify the financials really tightly, they would actually use safety as a proxy for that, which is really pretty amazing. And so safety was a huge deal at Koch Industries. And so I worked there for 2 years. Then I had a friend, Justin Salmons, that I was trying to get him to go to Koch. I worked with him at Spirit, and he ended up being recruited to go work at Textron as the vice president of procurement. And he asked me to come and move to Textron to work for him at Textron Aviation in supply chain. So I moved over as a supply chain manager, working for him in the indirect center of excellence. So I was buying all the benefits, medical, dental, 401k, pension, anything that was running through HR. We had responsibility for those contracts. So about $250 million a year as far of annual contract spend. So that was pretty exciting. So a lot of opportunities there at Textron in supply chain. And then I was just there, it was over a year, and then I had the opportunity, Justin helped me get the opportunity to move into finance. So a finance director position opened, and I moved into the operations finance director position. So that was the finance position supporting the vice president of operations. So operations in Wichita, Kansas, and Chihuahua, Mexico, and then Independence, Kansas. And so Ron Draper was the VP of operations. He was an amazing individual to work with. And so I got to work hand in hand with him as we tried to accomplish the crazy and sometimes impossible goals that were placed before us from the corporate leadership. And then we did have the opportunity to acquire the assets of Beechcraft Aircraft Company. So they were purchased by Onyx and Goldman Sachs back when I was still at Spirit AeroSystems, and through a number of different issues, Goldman, they brought in a lot of people that really didn't know what they were doing, didn't understand aerospace, and really wrecked a lot of the operations, and then they over-levered the business, and so they end up going through bankruptcy when they couldn't cover their debt, and they went through bankruptcy, and so Textron was able to buy Beechcraft, and so it was really bringing these two businesses together, because Cessna, Beech and Cessna, they were partners way back when, 100 years ago, and then they end up splitting over a design differences. One liked high wing, one liked low wing, and anyways, so it's like bringing them back together. And the funny thing is, in Wichita, there was a lot of families where one spouse worked for Cessna, one spouse worked for Beechcraft, and so we brought the family together. And so I did have the opportunity to help integrate those two businesses. We were able to take, through the combined efforts of the teams within operations, over $120 million out of the business, and hit the financial targets that Textron Corporate put in place for us with the integration. It did result in shutting down a couple of facilities in Chihuahua, because Beechcraft did have facilities in Chihuahua, Mexico, as well as the Textron facilities, and so we did integrate, consolidate some of those operations, and then consolidated operations in Wichita. And so really did some amazing work. Justin Salmons and Vice President of Supply Chain did just some absolutely amazing things to make that happen. And so it was really great to see all those things come together and to be able to bring those teams together and make the business stronger in a consolidated fashion. But a lot of stress that we went through there, a lot of late hours doing that. But it was a lot of fun bringing that together. And so I was in that finance position for a couple of years, and I did decide to move to run the machine shop at Textron. So the heavy machining area, I transferred there and became the value stream manager for. I demoted myself because I really wanted to get back into machining. My background was in machining, coming from Metalcraft Technologies, and so I wanted to get back into machining. So, in the position of finance director, I was able to push a lot of budget to the capital projects in the machine shop. And then I was like, hey, we've bought all these machines. I want to actually go run them, right, and help get the operations up and going, really there with all this new equipment that we brought in place. We're trying to insource and vertically integrate manufacture or production on a lot of these new components. Textron was moving from more stick-built assemblies where you had a lot of extrusions and sheet metal, and I was really a major advocate to try to do monolithic structures, which means you take big chunks of aluminum plate and billet, and then you machine it down. And so you reduce the amount of tooling, or reduce the amount of assembly, and you can increase the precision of the assembly. So this is not like groundbreaking things, stuff that's been done in commercial aerospace for a long time at Boeing. And so we're just taking a lot of that know-how and technology from the larger commercial aerospace side and integrating it, introducing it here at Textron and really pushing it. So part of what I did when I was in finance is I changed the cost models that we use to be able to evaluate. When we're doing a new program or new aircraft, they would go and do this analysis saying, hey, what is the cost structure of doing, making the assembly this way versus making it out of a monolithic structure. And so the cost analysis that they did, or the models they used previously, didn't really take into account the full cost of doing those stick build assemblies. It was just like material labor, and it didn't take into account the tooling, all these other things. And so once we actually introduced all these other costs that weren't being captured into the costs of this traditional stick built, all of a sudden the monolithic structures became a lot more cost effective on paper. Now we had a lot of doubters, a lot of engineers that program managers fought with us and said, it's going to raise the cost, this and that. And here you have the finance person telling the engineers and the manufacturing people, this is what the true cost is going to be. And a lot of them didn't believe me. So it is funny that a couple of years later, once we actually got some of these programs in production with the longitude, the latitude, the longitude, and the Denali, some of the individuals that were fighting me the hardest on the engineering side ended up getting awards for monolithic structures. But it was the finance guy that really helped push that stuff through. I had a lot of support of lower level engineering and advanced design team members, and Justin Salmons was a massive advocate of this as well. And so there was a group of people that were really advocating for this internally. But if it wasn't for changing those cost structure models that allowed the finance guys to say, hey, this is actually going to make sense from a financial standpoint to go forward, that's what really shifted things to be able to move stuff to more monolithic structures. And then we put that capital in place to go do the assemblies in-house, or not the assemblies, but the structures in-house, the machinings in-house with that equipment, and it brought the cost down even more. And so then that's when I decided to go and run that machine shop. So I did that for about 18 months. We deployed a lot of the equipment, got it up and running, built out the programmers, brought in a lot of new technology as well, new cutter technology, new equipment, other machining machines that were not being utilized, or the Textron previously hadn't utilized. And so we really kind of changed the methods and the manufacturing and raise the standard, raise the bar as far as the capabilities within Textron to be able to manufacture those components. Now, the biggest part of the machine shop and where we made most of our money was on the landing gear. That's a massive money maker for Textron. And so I did that for about 18 months, and then I was recruited to go work in our aftermarket business. And so Textron actually makes a lot of their money in aftermarket, and so I went and took over the pricing organization there. So the pricing, the aftermarket parts leader, the vice president of aftermarket parts, April, wanted me to come over there and help them optimize their pricing. And so we had over 400,000 SKUs that we were setting prices for. Some of those were standard things like batteries and tires and that sort of stuff, but we also did have custom assemblies. Say if somebody had some damage or something like that, we would go and price out the cost of doing a major structures repair or something like that from a parts standpoint. So that was a really, really pretty cool. And while I was over there, we really helped build out the data analytics organization within the parts business, which then spread to the rest of the business. So we brought in a lot of capabilities, brought in a tool called Alteryx that allowed us to optimize or automate a lot of processes, which is really pretty cool. And so we brought that in. We brought in a lot of other analytics and data science tools that did not exist at Textron. And we really helped push the website. So we started marketing the product with a kind of a direct consumer website. It was more of a B2B with our components, but it was outward facing. And so it was a lot more accessible because we had all these smaller shops that were undercutting us from a parts standpoint. And they were just they had a lot better web presence than we did. And so I really helped lead the charge on building out the web. I wasn't the developer. We had some really great developers, but I really helped give them the support to be able to get the site out there and put a lot more money and technology and horsepower behind getting images and a lot better data and better accessibility, working on ranking on Google. So there's a lot of things that we were really, really pushing to get that website really up and going and driving a lot more direct traffic to the website at Textron. So then after Textron, I was recruited to go and move over to PetMate. Well, it's Cosmic Pet. So I was actually the first employee at Cosmic Pet, which is a private equity-backed pet products company. I don't even have a dog, but literally this business is just up the road from where my house is here in Wichita. And it was HyperPet was the business here in Wichita, and then it was purchased by Guardian Capital. And then they merged with R2P Pet, so that was one of the acquisitions, and then purchased Our Pets, and then Pet Fusion. Those were the major acquisitions, and then there were some other smaller brands that were also integrated into the business. And so it was pretty cool. So I was recruited to become the VP of administration there, and so I had HR, finance, customer service, order entry, and analytics. And so it really was in charge of building the back end of the business and putting that all together so we could integrate the businesses, and then hoping to sell it to a larger private equity company or a strategic acquisition. And so I was there for about 4 years, really had an amazing opportunity to help integrate those businesses and learned a ton. I did learn from the Andy and Ted at Pet Fusion. They were just absolutely amazing. So Pet Fusion was a pure play e-commerce business where Ted and Andy started selling cat scratchers, dog beds, and things on Amazon and grew it to a pretty significant business over 6 years. And then when they were acquired, when Pet Fusion was acquired, Andy and Ted were able to take the e-commerce business of Cosmic Pet and then just absolutely blow it up, right? And so that's where the majority of the growth from Cosmic Pet was coming from, was those guys really coming in and taking a look at that portfolio and just absolutely blowing it up. And so they did just an amazing job. So they took, previously Walmart was the largest customer. So Cosmic Pet did all of Walmart's collars, leashes, dog bowls, not all their dog bowls, not all their dog beds, but a lot of their dog beds they did at direct import, and toys, cat toys, and lots of different products. And so some of it was private label, some of it was branded. And so Walmart was the largest customer, but then when Ted and Andy really took over e-commerce and got it really cranking and growing, then they were able to grow. So Amazon was the largest customer at the time that we were merged with PetMate. So the Guardian sold us to another private equity company, and then we were merged with the large pet products competitor called PetMate in Arlington. And so at that time when we integrated, I became the VP of analytics because we're a much larger business. PetMate was a much larger business than Cosmic Pet was, and so as we integrated, some of the roles were narrowed, and so I just had responsibility for analytics. I worked on the integration, integrating the businesses all onto Oracle ERP system, and then building out the analytics stack. And so we worked on that for a year, and then I ended up exiting the business. But while I was there, my wife and I started working on our apparel business. And so I started designing, so I had a lot of these different ideas, right? So I literally purchased like over 1,000 different pairs of underwear from all over the world, mostly from Asia and the US, just trying to find products that actually fit my body. And men's apparel is just not very size inclusive, right? And so that's where I tried to find stuff that would work. There were some things that fit all right, but if they did fit, they were expensive, and it was hard to understand what the sizing meant. And so then that's where I ended up coming up with our A, B, C, and then D size pouch classification, because men deserve to have products that actually fit their unique shape and size, regardless of their size. They deserve to be comfortable and confident, regardless of their size. And so that's where I started designing, started playing around, just sketching stuff out on paper. And then, of course, this is all during COVID, right? And so I just started sending designs to factories that I found on Alibaba. Now, on Alibaba, there's products that looked like they might work, and so I ordered just tons and tons of products off Alibaba from fabrics. Or sorry, I ordered products off Alibaba from different factories. But there's a lot of stuff that looked like it maybe have a pouch or it may fit a certain way, but it was just stretched and manipulated on a mannequin. And so once you actually got it, it's like, oh, this is designed for a 4-year-old. The material stinks. And so, I think I had samples done probably from 40 or 50 different factories, trying to find products that actually fit, that worked. And then we took those samples and then we modified them, right? And so I'd get a sample and then I'd say, okay, change this a centimeter, this 2 centimeters, make the waist larger, make the leg opening larger, change the profile of the pouch to this. And so I had a lot of back and forth. For example, like with the pant, I had this legging, this running tight that I worked on for a year. It took 50, 60 different samples on that one pant. Multiple factories tried it and I couldn't get it right. Finally, my main factory that I was doing most of my boxer briefs with, we ended up getting it to work with them, but it wasn't until I went to China and sat down and worked directly with them for the first time. Like I said, we started it during COVID, and so we couldn't go there. So I actually purchased stuff from factories for over a year without even having a phone call. It was all chat on Alibaba or WeChat with the different factories. And so we'd started with 4 different factories, and we ended up dropping one pretty quickly after the first couple of POs because their deposits were too big. And then I had another one so then I had 3, and then I finally was able to go over to China in 2023, and was it March, April 2023, and like one of the factories, like I couldn't even get them to schedule time, and then they're like to meet, and they knew I was going to come for like 3 months in advance, and then it was like, oh, it's inconvenient, this and that, and I was like, what in the world, right? I'm coming halfway across the world and I can't even get a meeting with you. And then it was like, okay, we can meet, but it's like for 45 minutes. And then I have one other factory, like where my customer rep actually invited me to come to her wedding feast, right? And so like she got married during COVID. And so they couldn't have the wedding gathering with her family, and so they were married, but then they just couldn't have the feast, and so they were having the big. When I was there, they were having the big wedding feast, and so they invited me. So there was all this family, and then they had their elastic supplier, and then they had me as a customer. We were the only non-family there, and so it was an amazing honor. It was an absolutely just an amazing night. to be involved with that. And so the difference between one partner that we're working with, and they literally have like introduced me into the family, and then I have another one that won't even spend 45 minutes with me. So as a result, we end up cutting that factory, and then the prices weren't as good. The other company gave us better prices as well, and then we end up moving the work to the factory where I was invited to the wedding. I mean, relationships matter, right? If you can trust people, and hey, that you actually know that they're going to be there when things get tough, and it's not just inconvenient, right? They're going to do work with you even when it's inconvenient. That's the type of partners we want to work with, because we have issues on our side. We know they're going to have issues, and we want to work with people that can actually work through those different issues and problems. And so I had an amazing visit. That very first trip I had to China, I was there for 3 weeks. I was up and down the coast, mostly down in Guangdong, down in the south, around, I fly into Hong Kong, and then I was mostly hanging out in Guangzhou. That's where, the Canton Fair. So while I was there, I went to the Canton Fair, but I was all over Guangdong province, but then up the coast, Wenzhou, Changzhou, Qingdao. So up and down. I actually went up and down the coast like multiple times, flying and trains. And so super crazy time. So yeah, so in 2023, I think I went to China 4 times, and then last year, 2024, I was there 5 times. So we went multiple times. So my goal is to be there about every quarter, and just to touch base with the factories, because it makes it a lot better, like, to work on products if I'm actually there. I can sit down with the designers, we can measure things out, we can do samples, and we can iterate on everything really, really quickly if we're there working together. And so it just makes everything go a lot faster, and you're building relationships with those businesses, because they are just absolutely amazing. I have a lot of friends there in China now with all my visits, and I've grown really close to those individuals. And so you'll find as you travel around the world that there are good people everywhere, and of course there's jerks everywhere as well. There's just as many jerks here in my town here in Wichita as there are in Guangzhou, right? And well, Guangzhou's a lot bigger, so maybe not. But there's a lot of really, really good and honest people there that I've worked with, and so I love working with my partners in the factories in China, and they're all just family businesses. Everybody I work with there is just their family-owned businesses, and so we're working to grow together, and they have great quality, great materials, and so they're just absolutely a joy to work with. Some people complain, talk about like slave labor, this and that. So everybody I work with is on the coast, right? They actually pay really, really, really pretty high competitive wages versus stuff that may be going on out west. And so there's a lot of people that make judgments about China and what's going on there. But those are usually people that have never been there before, right? And so so those factories we work with, I'm there visiting the factories, interacting with the workers that are there, the designers, the workers, as we work on our products. And so it's really quite amazing to be able to go to the factories and see your stuff all being made right there, or just the whole factory's full of your products. And so it's really really quite amazing to see that. And so I'm super grateful that we're able to design our products so that they actually fit guys. It's been just an amazing experience, as we as far as our business goes, we did about $1 million our first 11 months on Amazon. So we just launched on Amazon in March of 2022. So it's literally, we did $1 million almost, I think it was like a New Year's Eve, we got to the $1 million mark. And so we all the way to the end. It took us to the last day of the year to get to 1 million. And that was on Amazon. And those were just the D size pouch. And so we just launched initially with the D size pouch. We have our ABC D sizes. We just did the D size to start with. And then in 2023, again, we were just the D size. It was just me and my wife, but I was pretty much doing everything. And then it was in April 2023, that is when Christian started. So I brought Christian. He worked with me at my prior company. So he came on board as the director of data science and really helped me build out the tech side of the business. The data side helped automate more of our advertising. And so he came on, and then, we have brought on some resources in the Philippines. So we have some virtual assistants in the Philippines. and then we do have Jose down in Bolivia now. And so on in 2023 we continued to just do the D, and then it was right towards the end of the year, September, October, we started we had the Bs in production, and then just started dropping the first Bs right in November as when we got the first sets of Bs that were on our boxer briefs. And then that is also when we really started doing TikTok. So we were in a major cash crunch, right? So going through the holidays, I didn't know how we were going to pay for everything. I was worried about actually being able to make our mortgage because we had put so much cash into inventory for the fourth quarter. And then we had some double POs happen as well, which really kind of bound us up. And so we put all this money into inventory. I didn't know how I was going to cash flow everything. I'm like, I don't know, am I going to lose my house? It's really scary, right? So I was praying and praying. Like I was literally praying, like to God. I'm like, how are we going to pay for all this stuff? How are we going to? I need a lot of cash really fast. And I was praying, and I was stressed, and I was having a hard time sleeping. And the answer came to me. The answer was, God says, you need to live stream on TikTok. Now, we'd started selling on TikTok in October, and we kind of just, okay, this sounds like it's going to work really well, a TikTok shop. And so we got the listing going. I had a friend in Guangzhou in China that was just killing it on Douyin live streaming. And so I'd visited his studio in Guangzhou, which is really pretty amazing. They're doing some like 70, 80, $90,000 an hour, just crazy numbers on their live stream. And so I was praying about what I needed to do, and the answer distinctly was that I needed to live stream. I needed to live stream on TikTok. And so we got a studio set up, and that was scary. I'm like, holy cow, I don't know if I can do this. I've never done anything like this before. What does it take to live stream? And so we started live streaming on TikTok the week before Thanksgiving, right? That's really when we started, and it just absolutely blew up. And we didn't even know what we were doing. And so we would just kind of start off the live streams. Hey, how's it going? We'll just wait for some people to get in here, yada, yada, and just kind of talking. And the numbers were just absolutely like crazy. Now, TikTok, when we first started selling, they had a 200 order cap per day. And so that's the most you could sell until you could establish certain period of time, like you were in business and you had to fulfill so many orders and all sorts of things. And so we had this 200 order cap, and we were like with Black Friday, the day after the Cyber Monday, like those days, we were just like hitting our cap in like 30 minutes. It was like crazy how many units we were selling. It was just absolutely just amazing how much we were selling. And so I was live streaming. Christian was live streaming. Like Christian's first live stream, he was on for an hour, and I think he sold like 4,000 or 5,000 in an hour. It was just like absolutely nuts, right? And so TikTok had all sorts of subsidies going on. And so they were literally, we would sell something for like $40, and they would give a customer like a 50% off coupon. And so the customer's paying like $20, but then TikTok has given us like the base price plus a shipping subsidy. And so they're paying us like $50, and the customer's paying $20. And so we were getting like 95% margins. It was super crazy. And then they would pay within one day of the customer getting the delivery. And so they just paid super, super fast. Whereas Amazon, it's like, it can be 15 to 30 days from the time that you get a sale to the time that Amazon will actually pay you, because of the reserves and the delays and and then they're holding back for returns and all these different things, right? And so TikTok was just paying super fast. And so like it literally saved our business. It was almost like 100% margins for multiple months, and that was really what set us up. And now the cool thing was, when we go live on TikTok, a lot of people weren't comfortable buying off TikTok, and so we would see like this 50 to 80% increase in our sales volumes on Amazon when we would go live on TikTok. And so we'd see this huge boost. And so much so, like when we started going live, I started going and moving the price up on Amazon, increasing the price, because all these people were like, hey, looks cool, but I'm just going to go buy on Amazon. And so I have all these people, searching on Amazon. Of course, they're searching for our brand. They're probably clicking on an ad, and so I'm paying like ad spend, on this branded search. But so I'm like, if they're going to go to Amazon, we'll go and increase the price. So when we go live on TikTok, I would go and increase the price on Amazon. And then when we go off, I would drop it. And so, but what it allowed us to do is actually just overall raise the price on Amazon. So we were actually a lot more profitable as well because we had that external volume traffic coming from TikTok to Amazon. We were able to increase the price. And so it really helped us out a ton. Now, the thing is, our product, we're providing a custom fit without the custom price. Comparable quality products to ours are typically $25 to $35 a pair, and we're selling like a 3-pack for $30, right? And so we're still like a third of the, even with like a price increase that we introduced, we're still like a third to half of the price of a comparable competitor. And so this is not like your cheap Chinese or your Hanes, your cheap Hanes stuff. You wear them 3 times and they're stretched out. And they don't fit anyways. And so we're talking about like Tommy John's or a Jack Adams, a Wildman Tee, Saks, Shynasty, some of these other brands, right? And so there's a lot of different brands, and they're really well made. Obviously, they're really, really well made, but they are a lot more expensive. And so even with our price increase, we're still a lot less than those other brands. Plus, we have 36 different sizes, right? We're the most size inclusive men's underwear brand on the market, outside doing something custom. And so, we go from extra small to 5XL, then you have the ABC and D size pouch. Okay. So when we launched on TikTok, that did just absolutely amazing. So then we're just on Amazon and then TikTok. And then it was in about March of 2024, we launched our website. So a Shopify site. I mean, we had a site up and going before that, but you couldn't actually buy anything on that. So RMAC.store. So we launched the site really heavy in March of 2024. And then we've gradually grown that. Most of the traffic there is just organic, people searching for our brand because they want to come buy from us directly versus buying off Amazon. And so we've just gradually built that up. This year, we hope that will be a 7-figure business by itself, just on the RMAC.store. This last year, we did hit 7 figures on TikTok, so that's super awesome. So we did about $6 million in sales in 2024. So we had about $4.5 million off Amazon, and then $1 million off TikTok, and then the balance off Shopify. So it's actually about 4.6 on Amazon, and so we're just right at $6 million. So super excited. We did $1 million our first year, $3.5 million our second year, and $6 million this year. So about 80%, 300% growth, and about 80% growth there, and really looking forward to the continued growth. And so far this year in 2025, we are holding with January, February, we're holding our December Amazon numbers. And so that's really great, where a lot of other brands, you see a fall off in Q1 after the holidays, but we're actually holding that. So that's looking really, really good. And then continue to push on the Shopify side. So we are running more meta ads, Facebook, Instagram, driving that traffic to Shopify, as well as working on organic ranking on Shopify as well. We do post on Medium, Substack, Hub Pages, Reddit. So we are very present, pretty much any of the socials, right? We're TikTok, Pinterest, X, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. So we're all over the place, posting across lots of different platforms, getting the word out there. We're excited to work with affiliates. We continue to push and build out our affiliate network because we have so many amazing customers. They buy our product and they're like, hey, how can I help? Like, push this out there. And so we love to work with affiliates because we would much rather give an affiliate 20% commission than giving Jeff Bezos or Zuckerberg, 20% running ads on their platforms. And so I'm like, the more customers that absolutely love our products, that want to go out there and just share. And so they can share because they just love the products. They're telling their friends already. I literally have customers that are like buying stuff